So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to talk about social media first, and then I'm going to hand over to Ian. But the first thing we're going to do is, I'll share the screen first, and then let's talk about a bit about social media. So here we go. So I'm just going to, this is what kind of the way we're going to go today. So we're going to look at, Facebook stuff. First of all, lots and lots of different things happening with Facebook at the moment. We're going to start looking at the business suite, new set of apps that's appeared, groups, big changes on groups, and also a way to collaborate with people who have got influence over Facebook. Instagram, we're going to be focusing on Reels and Rights Manager. Twitter, they've brought in some very interesting audio clips into direct messages, so we'll explore what that means. LinkedIn, so a really interesting development on company pages. We're also going to look at some stories, news, and look at the algorithm, things we've been discovering. And then we're also going to go back to the algorithm because TikTok have revealed more about the algorithm and where it works there. I'm sure you're all on TikTok making up songs and dances. Looking forward to watching them all later on. So who am I? So this is me. I'm Mark Saxby, and this is my family. This is where we went to manage to get away to Italy in the summer. The leaning tower was particularly leaning that day, as you can see. So I'm a real family man. I think work-life balance is really important. And me and my wife set up Status Social, or rather, we're directors of Status Social. We've been doing it for more than 10 years. So I started off as a journalist. I was a journalist for around 20 years. Started off in newspapers and magazines, ran a press agency, did a bit of TV. This is me interviewing athletes on the finish line of the triathlon at the Commonwealth Games. But most of my real love was in radio, and I ended my career at the BBC in Leeds and then in Derby. I'm a big fan of Eurovision Song Contest. Apologies for those people who've heard this story before. This is me cunningly disguised as a Moldovan during the song contest in Dusseldorf, wearing a hat that we'd made in a Dusseldorf craft shop, and I bought a flag from eBay just to try and get on TV. One of my favorite moments, and there are many favorite moments of this story, but I haven't got time to tell them all, is when I walked into a Dusseldorf craft shop and said, can you help me make this giant pointy hat? And she said, oh, what country are you supporting in Eurovision? And I said, Moldova. And she said, your English is very good. So hearing that for a man from Grimsby, from a German, is a great compliment, I can tell you. So Status Social, I've been going 10 years this January. And what we do is we run social media strategy workshops, we do training workshops, we manage other people's social media, and we also do social media advertising. So far, we've generated more than £3 million for our clients and ourselves through social media, very much results-based. And a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today are things that we've either seen in practice or we've been putting into practice, or I'm certainly going to talk about the application of these new things and how you can make the most of them for your business, because there is no point being on social media if you're not going to make it work properly for yourself. Otherwise, it's a complete waste of time. And here's just a few clients who we work with, but that's kind of vanity, so I'm going to move on quickly. And I'm going to give you a poll. So it'd be good to just ask this poll to see where you all are. So I'd like to, if we launch the poll, I'd like to ask you the question: have you seen an increase in leads and sales coming through social media during COVID? So your options are, yeah, it's stayed about the same, it's significantly up, it's slightly down, definitely down, or we're not sure because we don't measure our social media activity. Great, the answer's still coming in. So at the moment, it's slightly up is in the lead. It's like a bad horse race, this is, isn't it? Okay, we'll end the polling there. So a few more to come, but we'll end the polling there. So just in terms of the results then, yes, it's slightly up, 33%. So a third of you say it's slightly up. 23% say it's significantly up, which is really good. 21% say the same. 13% say no, it's down, and 10% say we're not sure, we don't measure our social media activity. So interesting results there out of all those ones. Real, obviously, mix across the board. So let's launch into what's new on social media, and we're going to look at Business Suite to start off with. So Facebook has got a number of tools to manage your profiles across its platforms. There's Creator Studio, there's been Pages Manager, and now there's Facebook Business Suite. So Facebook has definitely been drawing us into using these suites more and more. For instance, you can't now schedule directly on a Facebook page. You've got to go to Creator Studio. So what Business Suite does now, it replaces the old Pages Manager on your mobile device. And what it does, it incorporates all your Facebook page and your Instagram profiles into one space. So on it, you can manage your profile's private messages, you can manage the notifications, you can manage the posts, and the insights all from one tool. I would say the main difference is that you can now actually manage, look at the analytics for all of for Instagram and Facebook all in one space. So we're a big fan of measuring social media efforts, as I mentioned earlier on. And so to be able to have a place where you're more likely to check it, because there's no doubt about it, checking your Instagram analytics is a bit of a pain, especially if you're doing it through the app. So this tool is quite useful from that point of view. I also think as well, just in terms of another reason why you should be interested in the Business Suite, is because Facebook have declared they want to try and merge together their social networks as much as they can. And we believe that there's a good chance that WhatsApp for Business analytics could also soon appear in the Business Suite. So if you're using WhatsApp for Business, then it will be great to have it all in one place. If you're not using WhatsApp for Business, it's definitely worth considering, particularly in these times of upcoming lockdown too. Is your business using Facebook groups yet? It's really interesting hearing Mark Zuckerberg about a year or so ago obsessing about Facebook groups, saying they're the way forward for Facebook. The pages were losing their way a little bit, and he liked Facebook groups because he wanted Facebook to be seen as a village rather than just a group of disparate people. And it's interesting, the new developments that have come into Facebook groups in the last month, which show maybe much more of a seriousness towards people using groups. It's interesting, 1.8 billion people use Facebook groups every month, and that's risen 4 million in the last year. So definitely in terms of the growth area, groups are growing faster than any other part of Facebook. And it's definitely, I would say, time to take groups seriously for your business. We have a group, Social has a group for its clients and its potential clients, and we use it to share our news. And there's all sorts of different ways to use groups for your business. So it's worth considering, am I using them in the right sort of way? So this is one of the things that I think is interesting in terms of why or how they're taking groups seriously, is they're now allowing you to get more insights, more analytics from groups. So previously there was very little analytics at all in groups. And what we can now do is look at things like the post reach. We can look at the engagement by reactions, comments, photo views. One the thing I'm probably more interested in than anything else is that you can now see the number of active members in your group at the time you post. So I think that's really interesting, because a lot of the time with groups, you're kind of hitting out there and hope you don't know whether it's going to be seen by anybody. So to have that information, I think is really, really useful. So this option is going to be tested with a small group of groups over the next few months, and then hopefully then rolled out over Facebook to a wider audience a little bit later. Facebook's also adding some new ways to engage within groups. So they're going to be staging real-time chats, Q&A tools, and conversation starters. So again, just another sign that they're taking groups seriously. I think this is probably one of the best ones, though. The best new features is what's called Admin Assist. So one of the reasons why a lot of the time when we've talked to potential clients during their social media strategy sessions about whether they should use Facebook groups, the biggest boundary has been the actual amount of moderation and checking into the groups you've got to do to make sure it doesn't get out of control or get spammy. So Admin Assist should be really helpful in those situations. So what's happened is that Facebook has said you can now have much more control over what goes on in your group. For instance, one of the biggest problems with groups, people might go on there and try selling things, even though it's your group and you're supposed to be in control of it. Now you can put in banned words and banned phrases so that people can't then sell certain items in your group. You can also decline posts that have certain keywords, or you can, or that include a particular link, or you can also stop people who haven't been members of your group for a certain period of time being able to then post in your group. So we think these are really, really helpful tools. There's also Brand Collabs Manager. So this is a really interesting thing about which will allow page admins to make money from their group. Now, I know it's unlikely you guys are going to be wanting to make money from your group, but what's maybe more so is interesting as businesses. We see a lot of our clients wanting to use influencers to try and get their name out there to a wider group of people. And we think a lot of time they're being, I suppose, I say misled. Is misled the right word? Certainly, they're wasting their money on the wrong sort of people who haven't really got the influence that they think they have or they say they have. Now, to become a brand collab manager, i.e. to be able to get your page registered to be able to monetize it with brands, you've got to have certain criteria. So it makes it a lot more certain as to whether you really are hitting an active audience. So for instance, what's some of the things you've got to have? You've got to have at least 1,000 followers and at least one of the following. So you've got to have at least 15,000 post engagements in the last 60 days. That's a pretty decent number of post engagements. You've got to have 180,000 minutes, 180,000, that's a big chunk of time, minutes that's been viewed in the last 60 days, or you've got to have about 30,000 1-minute views of your 3-minute videos, because Facebook loves 3-minute videos, in the last 60 days. So good news if you want to use influencers who really are influencers. If you use Facebook adverts, you might be quite pleased with this news, especially if you're aware of the text overlay tool. So the text overlay tool is a tool from Facebook which looks at how many words are on your advert and then says it's too many and then stops you from posting it. Well, now Facebook have said there is no longer any rules to say you can't have more than 20% of text in the main image. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean we should now start putting loads of text in our images? I would probably say no, because I still think that videos and great photos work better in adverts than text does anyway. Let's go on to Instagram and look at Reels. So have any of you played with Reels yet on Instagram? So Reels is TikTok's, or rather Instagram's answer to TikTok, 15-second videos of people dancing and listening to music, doing stuff with music, and very, very popular, as I'm sure you're all aware. So Reels was launched in August, but what's interesting is Instagram's already looking at monetizing it so that we then as businesses can then try and run adverts in good Reels. They're also going to be testing shopping in Reels later this year, which is much more interesting in the fact that you can now we'll now be able to put products in our Reels and people will be able to click through to them. Plus, they've also announced Instagram that we can now, anyone in the world can now put shoppable links into IGTV. So IGTV, Instagram television, is the longer form videos on Instagram. And eventually these videos will be available through the Instagram shop. So you can now, which is a dedicated page for shopping on the app. So users can tap onto your IGTV video and buy through Instagram checkout or buy directly through your website. What I think is interesting about this is that Facebook have said, who own Instagram, of course, have said that they won't be taking any cut of any sales made through IGTV yet until 2021. So whether that's a sign of because of COVID or because of just testing out a new feature, I'm not sure. But what I do know is that obviously Christmas is going to come, and if you can get some good use out of IGTV before Christmas comes, that could be a real advantage. Let's look at Rights Manager. So Rights Manager is a device that was previously available on Facebook, where Facebook could read the text of a post you've done to make sure nobody else is copying your text. Well, now they've also released the technology to check photos as well, to make sure nobody's copying your photos. But also, they've now also said it's now available on Instagram. So if you're worried about people taking your copyrighted material, this is a really good advantage towards stopping that sort of thing happening in the future. Not an awful lot happening on Twitter at the moment, although I think there still are big changes to come, and they're certainly evolving pretty fast. But over the last month, they've been testing audio messaging in Brazil. So we think audio messaging is really interesting. So what you can do with audio messaging is you can now send a voice message, or this is in Brazil anyway, send a voice message via direct message. So think about this from a point of view of a customer service tool. So we run the customer service for a national car parking firm over Twitter. It means now that customers can now send a voice message to us with maybe when it's longer issues they need to discuss with us or send us information about. Of course, it also means they can probably do angry rants in voice messages as well, which isn't quite so good. But it also means we can respond as well to people with a voice message. And if we really, really want to, we could probably sing an answer. I don't see us doing that, but at least it's good to know the option is there. Let's look at LinkedIn. So one of the things I really missed on LinkedIn several years ago is where they took away the ability to see who was following your LinkedIn company page. And now they've brought it back, which is really good news. So you can go through and see, first of all, whether people actually who are following your page are really in your audience, whether they're people you want to be following you, but also it's a great opportunity for lead generation. You can look through your audience and think, okay, I've got some people on there who may be second or third degree connections. Why are they following my page? Are they an opportunity for me to build a relationship with and possibly get some business from? So I think this is a really good tool and worth looking at in your analytics on your LinkedIn company page. Stories are coming to LinkedIn. So these are 24-hour stories that appear just like they do on Facebook and on Instagram. So they're now coming to LinkedIn. What they've tested this month is that the ability to put links into stories. Now, when stories first appeared as an option on LinkedIn, I thought, are they really going to work? But if they've got links in, and you can then put a link into your website or to a product or to a service, I think this could be really, really good and a bit of a game changer when it comes to breathing new life into LinkedIn. So definitely keep an eye out for when stories start being rolled out across LinkedIn. Also going to have a quick look at the LinkedIn algorithm. So we're always testing out the algorithm to see what's happening, what's changing, what's working, what's not working. Just this post here I put out last week, it had about more than 15,000, getting on to 16,000 reach so far. Really got a lot of engagement. And it was the idea of the post was ultimately to drive engagement. But what we've discovered with these posts over the years, and well, certainly over the last maybe 6 months or so, is that having meaningful engagements on a post means your post is much more likely to be seen by other people. So when you're writing posts on LinkedIn, think about how can I get people to give longer answers. So this one here has got lots of people giving longer answers about their own experience and what they think. There's a few short ones on here, but most of them are longer ones. So if you can drive longer engagements on your post, you're much more likely to get some really good reach on your post. And we also think as well that although there seems to be this often a misconception that we need to be posting photos on every LinkedIn post, actually we're finding on a regular basis that our most effective posts have no photos or media on at all. It's all about strong top lines, good storytelling, and being authentic. If you can get those things into LinkedIn posts, you'll definitely get better results through it. Finally, we're going to have a look at TikTok. So TikTok, for those who use it, will always see what happens when you go into TikTok. You see what's called a For You page, which shows you a variety of videos, which will undoubtedly be the ones that you wanted to watch, even though you never knew you wanted to watch them. And so TikTok have been revealing more about the algorithm and how that works. And I think from a business point of view, TikTok is worth considering. So here's a couple of TikToks to get you in the mood. So here's the first one now, the pretty little thing, TikTok. Oh, I'm going to get it going properly this time. So hopefully you saw that. That was a TikTok pretty little thing video where you can actually wear a dress which turns into a face mask, and then give me a shake of a head if you couldn't see that last video, just in case I'm there you go. And here's Subways. So there you go. I'm heading out for my meatball marinara just after the end of this show. So what have TikTok said about their algorithm? They said that what happens is that users are shown 8 videos featuring different trends, music and topics, and then the algorithm will continue to serve the user new iterations of 8 videos based on the way the user engages with and what the user does. This information has come from Axios, by the way. The engagement that they're looking at is things like direct interactions, so comments, likes, follows, shares, the kind of thing you'd maybe expect. Completion rates, so if you watch a clip through to the end, that again counts towards showing, helping them decide what your preferences are. Video information, whether the video has a clip or captions or specific sounds and songs or hashtags. And then also your device and your account settings. This is lower in the algorithm, but so it is a lesser factor in determining reach. But TikTok does consider elements such as your language preference, your country setting, and your mobile device. So it's interesting to see, and I always say with all social networks, understanding the algorithm is vital if you really want to make the most of a network. So that's it from what's new in social media. Right, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Ian. So we are, as a specialist social media agency, all we do is social media, because we recognize that to do social media well, you've got to be doing it 24 hours a day, or at least maybe not 24, at least 8 hours a day, to really be on top of it, stay on top of it, and to do it well. And although we could do a bit of a PR and we could do a bit of branding, and we may even be able to, but I mean, let's be honest, I can't do any SEO. We would never be able to do it as well as other people. So we team up with other agencies who we know are not only really good at what they do, but they're also ethical with their clients. And we've had a long relationship with Impression, going back to almost the time that they started was around the same time we started. So we really trust them. We pass work their way and they pass work our way. So it's always a real pleasure to work with Impression on What's New sessions. And it's also a real pleasure to introduce Ian Humphreys. So Ian's from Impression, and it's his first What's New. So I'm sure it's going to be amazing. And so I'm going to hand over to Ian. And if you've got any questions, then put them in the chat, and then me and Ian will answer them at the end.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Mark, there. Thank you. I think before we jump into the actual presentation, I think India is going to be posting a poll for everybody, if that's correct. Great. So for anybody who can't actually see the question, I'll just read it out while everyone's answering. So we've asked the audience, do you think your website is receiving enough traffic? And the 3 answers can be yes, no, and not sure. And quite astounding, actually, quite a few, almost over 70% of the audience so far has answered no, which is quite interesting. So hopefully some of the tips and news in today's presentation can help with that. Let's end the poll. Thank you for everyone who engaged with that. So if I share my screen. Okay, so as Mark kindly introduced, my name is Ian Humphreys. I'll be running through what's new in SEO today, in terms of what's the news of the industry. Before we jump into that though, I'd just like to give a bit of background about myself. So I'm an SEO strategist here at Impression. Impression being an agency with a full suite of digital marketing services that we offer to our clients, including SEO, PPC, and digital PR as well. I myself have around over 10 years agency-side digital marketing experience. I have a background working with brands, both B2B, B2C, in a range of different industry niches, including lead generation and also e-commerce as well. My main specialties are digital strategy, content marketing, and also technical SEO as well. So to go through the 4 kind of like news items that I'd like to cover today that have happened over the recent months. So the first one being the unofficial Google algorithm update. So I'll be running through what that is, how that may have impacted your websites and what you can do to resolve any issues that you've found. We're then moving on to Google's recent indexing issues. So at this point, I'll be discussing the basics in terms of how a search engine operates, and also what is the issues that Google have been having recently. We will then cover Google Search Console and their new account integration feature and what that means for new SEO tools out there. And finally, we'll cover the pick up later feature for local inventory ads on the search engine ranking pages as well. So to start off, we're going to be covering the algorithm update. So there were signs of a Google search algorithm update on the 21st or 23rd of September. What we saw was actually a rise in a number of unrelated results for queries, particularly on mobile. So some sites also saw a significant drop in organic traffic and also rankings. So the update itself was actually not really officially announced by the search engine. However, what we can see in search engine ranking page tracking tools such as SEMrush, Senna, and other tools as well, we've seen quite a lot of volatility in the website keyword rankings across the board. As you can sort of see from the screenshot on the right-hand side here, this is a screenshot from SEMrush's Senna. What we can see here is when the peaks are very high, this is when the keyword change and keyword positions across all the different terms and industries that they're tracking is quite volatile. It's quite a significant amount of change. And this normally highlights when there has been an algorithm update. What does this mean? So Google actually releases multiple updates to the algorithm every single day. As you can sort of see, even by the fluctuations, like this thing's changing every single day here. And this is because they want to strive to give the users the most relevant results to their queries. It's not really been identified exactly to have been a focus on one single element of SEO. However, it's very likely to continue their sort of like algorithm trends to be a broad update and evaluates multiple SEO factors from technical, content, and also off-page as well. So when we would normally announce this to any of our clients, one of the first things that always springs to mind is the question, have I been affected? So there are a number of analytics and keyword rank tracking tools that you can use to understand the impact of the update and how that's happened to your website. A couple of them being like some of the free versions. So we're talking about Google Analytics and Google Search Console. But there are also some, if you have a higher budget, there's other sort of tracking tools as well, such as like stats, etc. But you can do this kind of like analysis with the free tools. You can simply just adjust the timeframes within these tools in their inbuilt reports when you're looking at performance for Google Search Console, or maybe just channel performance on Google Analytics. And you can just simply adjust these timeframes so it covers the timeframe of the update, so between the 21st and 23rd of September, and plot on the graph when the update happened and see if traffic trends have actually changed since that period, or keyword trends have changed. Of course, you would also take into consideration your own industry's sort of seasonality as well. But what you should do if you've actually been hit by an algorithm update in terms of a recovery strategy, so this is what we would recommend that you do. I mean, you can use Google Search Console Analytics to find areas of your website since the update that are now performing poorly. You can use competitor analysis tools such as Ahrefs, SEMrush to understand who are the actual winners within your industry landscape and what you can learn from them and what's now being deemed favorable in the search engine. You can become familiar with Google's search quality evaluator guidelines. So these are quite good for anybody who does not know the real crux or real technicalities of the different SEO metrics that are considered within the algorithm. These are simply some questions and some values that Google are striving towards actually trying to give in terms of a better experience for their users. So all the metrics add up in terms of driving towards these goals. So if you run through these questions on your poor performing areas of your website and ask them to yourself, you can find some areas for improvement and learn from that there. You can review any winners' content, backlink profiles, and also website performance metrics to understand what has been favorable, and then understand how you can adopt these key findings into your own strategies as well. Before I talk upon the next update in terms of the recent indexation issues, I'd firstly like for anybody who may not be familiar how a search engine operates, I've just included a slide here to just go through that. So if we think about the search engine and how it discovers new website content, it does this by actually sending out a bot to call the individual website pages across different websites. And how it does this is it navigates through the actual internal links included on your website and uses them as as roadways, for example. For each page that is actually discovered, they will then take that code, they will render it of the page and send it to be included within their own index. And this is before they then send it to the query engine, which will then analyze key metrics that grade the website's relevancy or authority on a subject or a topic before retrieving pages from their index to show within their own results pages. And this is just in its simplest form. So what Google has actually had troubles with recently is the way that they index their pages. So during a very similar time, actually, as the search engine algorithm update, Google confirmed that they were indexing issues of the pages that affected around 0.22% of all pages submitted. This itself is only, you can see like quite an insignificant figure, but if you think about when these bots are crawling the websites and the different pages of the websites, it can be millions of URLs every single day. 0.22% is actually still quite a lot of the index. So these issues meant that some of the submitted pages were not actually included within the index for a period of time. So you may have found that some of your pages over the past month were not appearing in Google mobile or desktop search results, or they may, if they were appearing, they were completely showing the wrong page. So what this means, yeah, so I sort of covered that already, but what you can do, if you are having some of these indexing issues, or you believe that you are having some of these indexation issues, you can use Google Search Console. So they give you an inspect URL tool to gain direct feedback from Google as to what is the status of your pages within the index. And you can simply just use the search bar at the top of Google Search Console, put in the URL that you think may be having trouble with, and then the feedback that you will get is whether the URL is included within Google Index or it's not, and the feedback will be displayed here quite easily. So that can help you diagnose whether you are having indexation issues across your content or not. Until update 3. So this is the new account verification feature through Google Search Console. So for anybody who does not know, Search Console is an official Google tool. It helps you monitor your website's organic visibility, but also performance as well. It can help really fix key issues with the crawlability or indexability of your content within the search engine. So what has been released is a new feature has been released so that you can now use your Google Search Console account to sign up to other new SEO tools. These tools in return give you free access to their full SEO auditing software. However, as anybody who has recently watched Netflix's show, The Social Dilemma, will know that nothing is really free online. So what we want to make you aware of is the fact that some of these tools have been reported to use your actual data anonymously. However, they use it to better enhance their own reporting capabilities. So all this like massive amounts of like query data, where you have got search queries and the clicks, impressions, they can potentially use that to better their own tools. But what this really means is the fact that for any maybe like key search terms that are currently reported within their tools as maybe having low search volume or actually driving a little bit of traffic to what they're portraying. But in reality, what you know by looking at your data, those keywords actually drive a significant amount of traffic and a lot of revenue as well. Sharing this data could potentially make you lose your competitive edge. So although you're getting access to these free software, you're actually giving away your data to potentially competitors that can use this to better their own strategies. So what we're saying here is we're not really advising that you boycott these tools. We're simply just making you aware as to how your data can be used when using this feature. So just be careful with that. And finally, Google have released this new pick up later feature. So since the start of the pandemic, people have really built new habits and ways of managing their new normal. People and businesses have learned leaned into the digital world. So in the past 6 months, we've actually experienced around almost 10 years worth of change in the digital atmosphere. So as some communities begin to open up and prepare businesses for the new holidays, it's critical to help consumers know what to expect before they actually go into store. Whether it's offering opening hours or showing what's in stock or noting if curbside pickup or takeout is available, these are all options that Google are trying to enable within their Google My Business pages, and also their ads as well. So I'm going to speak about one feature in particular, so the pick up later feature. So customers are also looking for like real-time information when it comes to products they need. So searches actually containing like terms such as like near me or available near me have actually grown by more than 2 times across regions and categories over the past 3 months. So what does this mean? Google have actually released these new local inventory ads where retailers can now show users that the products they are searching for are available for nearby store pickup. As you can sort of see from the image on the right hand side here, we've got the different like ad features, and then also they've got the different the new feature saying that the umbrella can be picked up by Wednesday or picked up today, and this can help keep you promoting your products you wish to sell whilst managing those expectations of when they are likely to receive it. So some of the key takeaways, 4 points here. So the unofficial Google algorithm update. So using Google Analytics and Search Console to understand what pages and keywords have been impacted, you can then look to analyze your competition to understand who are the key winners in your landscape and what are the different strategies that you could adopt yourselves to kind of be one of these winners in the future updates. In terms of the indexation issues, so you can use Google Search Console's Inspect URL tool to identify if there are any recently added or updated pages, and have they been included in the index at all. There are Search Console account updates, so be careful as to which tool you choose to integrate with your Search Console data. You don't want to lose your competitive edge here. And finally, the pick up later feature for local inventory ads. So you can use these new local inventory ads. Retailers can now show users that their products they are searching for are available for nearby store pickup as well. So take advantage of that feature if you do have a local brick and mortar store. Thank you for your time, everybody. Listen to that. Again, my name is Ian Humphries. You can find me on Twitter, or you can email me directly if you have any questions regarding what we've talked about today. As Mark has already stated, if you could give us any feedback, that would be greatly appreciated. I think all the speakers here are looking to improve their own talks, and also we want to make sure that the event is as best as possible as well for the future. Thank you.
Great, thanks everyone. If you've got any questions, feel free to either put them in the chat or put your name down there, and you can unmute your microphone and ask a question that way if you prefer, if it's a long convoluted one. So while you're doing that, Ian, can I just ask you a question? So you said about how some websites saw a drop when the changes happened in September. What were the main reasons that you saw why websites dropped down the rankings?
It's been a mixture, really. Like I said, it's a broad algorithm update, although unofficially announced. So it actually affected numerous different amounts of areas. I mean, what we've looked at for maybe some of our clients, we've been looking at sort of like cleaning up things like backlink profiles. So if you look at your backlink profile and you have a numerous amounts of spammy links, for example, you might want to set up a disavow for those within Google Search Console, so you can let the search engine know that we don't want to be associated with any of these links. We've also looked at reviewing quite a bit in terms of intent and also the actual content of people's websites. So if you think about each different query maybe have a different amount of intent, so whether they were looking for something more informative or something more transactional, maybe they're looking to buy now, you can look at the search landscape and how that's changed and see what kind of websites are being favorable within search on the actual ranking pages, and then you can look to see what kind of content that they're achieving on their websites, and then see how you can adopt that within your own. So we've seen kind of like some of the search landscapes change from maybe like more transactional into actually more informative. And we've helped people like transition into those kind of like areas.
Right, thanks, Ian. That's really interesting. One thing I share while we're still, there's nobody asked a question yet, which is most unlike a What's New event. So either you guys are all overwhelmed by Ian's braininess, or you're shy, or all your questions have already been answered. One thing I was going to mention was that Twitter are looking into removing the ability to do a straightforward retweet. So, obviously you can just click a button and it will retweet it straight away. What they don't want to do, they're fed up with people retweeting stuff that they've not either read, or they've not really checked out to see whether it's true or whether it's false news, or all sorts of other reasons. So what they're going to be doing instead is making sure that the default is the quote retweet. So it doesn't mean you have to actually put a quote every single time you retweet, but what it will mean is that you'll have the opportunity to think about whether you're going to put a quote retweet in there. So you can still make it leave it blank and retweet it, but it will probably stop a lot of retweeting. So what does that mean for us as businesses? It means then that we have to really focus on if we're going to try and get retweets, we need to work a lot harder, because they're not going to be as easy to come by as they used to be. I mean, to be honest, they've been harder to come by anyway, because people like tweets more than they retweet them nowadays. But it means we're going to have to work a lot harder. Sophie's asked Ian a question. Does Google benefit from Search Console data being shared with third-party companies, Ian?
That's a good question. Does Google benefit? I would say No, it's because essentially you're giving their data away, because Google owns Google Search Console. So I would say that they do not benefit from it, because you're essentially sharing data that was once private, but now you're giving it away to third-party companies for free. Google also doesn't really like you gaming the system in terms of SEO. That's why they keep everything a secret in terms of the actual algorithm and the different metrics. So any kind of like insights there that we can gain and share with tools that try and game the system, they probably would not benefit from that or want that either.
Clive said, can you tweet your own website in the quote? I suppose you could, but it maybe look a bit spammy, so maybe do that if you think it's strategically useful. Martin's asked, how many of you have the LinkedIn stories on your app? Well, I haven't, rather frustratingly, although I check it every 3 hours just to make sure. I actually also haven't still got the Twitter stories as well on my app. Although when I was on holiday in Italy, it appears, and I thought, great, I've got it. And then I came back to the UK, and it was gone. So clearly, Twitter thought I was Italian, which is quite nice, for 2 weeks, and then it took it away from me. So yes, it's not quite there yet. Hannah Ingram's asked Ian, how important are rich snippets? Maybe you need to explain what rich snippets are to those who need a refresher.
Okay, so I think people called rich snippets numerous different things. So in terms of my understanding of rich snippets are the different code that you can include on your website to enable different features on the search engine ranking pages. So if we think about certain areas such as like the FAQ sort of schema and things like that, where if you, for example, type in a question within the Google search results, you typically would get a feature snippet at the top of the page, and it would answer your query there. Because that feature is in position, what we call position 0, it takes priority above all the different organic listings for the rest of the page. That position there is like really key, because it's an enhanced listing, so it's a lot bigger than the other listings, so you push your competition down. And plus it's also position 0, it's above position 1, so you're going to get the majority of the clicks there as well.
Do you find, Ian, though, with rich snippets that because they show so much of what you've got on your website that you end up not really getting the benefit?
There's pros and cons really. So in return of Google taking your content and putting it within the results pages, you are getting the enhanced listing, so the position 0. So there's kind of like a bit of a weighting there. You're getting more real estate on the search engine ranking page, so there's more likely people going to click on your listing. However, in return, your content may already answer the question on the search results page, so you may not get that click. So you can kind of like adapt different strategies though. So you can ensure that the content that is used by the search engine is trimmed down to a certain level, so it doesn't answer the question completely. They get a taste for the answer, and then they have to click through to your website to get the full answer, so you retain that traffic. So there's ways to get around it.
Great. Any final questions? Clive's asked, is there an average number of pages that I imagine that Google will go through after a search to find out what they're looking for still, or does no one, or is this people? So is there an average number of pages people will go through after a search to find out what they're looking for, or does no one go beyond the first page?
So in terms of the data that we've seen, and different third parties have run multiple different data collecting exercises to find out within each position, what is the click-through rate of each listing, and it definitely changes depending on industry. So there's not really one answer that suits all, but on an average, if we include all the different search features, so the people also ask boxes, also the featured snippets, the different shopping ads, etc. You think about all the different features that are on a search engine ranking page, and then add all the 10 organic listings beneath that. There's quite a lot that people can click on before they go to the next page. So I would say that over like 90% of all clicks would happen on the first page.
Great. I'll answer Lucy's question first and then go on to Hannah's question. So Lucy Fisher asked, can you set up a business page on TikTok? Yes, there is a TikTok for business feature. If you just type in tiktok.com/business, you'll find it. And then Hannah's asked, if a URL isn't featuring on Google Console, does that mean internal links into the page is the answer?
Internal links will help the crawlability and the way that your pages are discovered. We would also recommend looking at your XML sitemaps that you submit and ensure that it's also included within that as well. If it's not included within the inspect URL, it's unlikely that the search engine has found it yet. So just ensure that your sitemaps update dynamically and are being submitted to the search engine, but internal links definitely will help the crawlability as well.
And Mazine's asked, Ian, you're getting all the questions today. Which tools would you recommend or are your go-to for keyword research?
Keyword research. So I would recommend, I mean, it completely depends on budget, but the two that I would recommend are Ahrefs as a sort of starter package. They're really good in terms of keyword research, but then also have additional elements to the tool that enable checking things such as like content and also backlink profiles as well. I think it's a good all-around tool to start with, especially when looking at keyword research. So if you are looking for more longer tail stuff, so maybe like questions, you can look at things such as like answerthepublic.com. It's really good in terms of a free one. But then if you're looking at more like enterprise level sort of like keyword research software, we would probably recommend something like Searchmetrics.
Great, good stuff. Okay, I think unless I missed them, I think we've got all the questions there. Oh, here we go. Got one from Emmy. How do you see LinkedIn stories being used by businesses? What type of content do you think will be shared? Stories are typically quite natural and organic content in Insta and TikTok. I think this is where I don't think I've got a straight answer for that one, mostly because I think it's really dependent on the businesses. I think a lot of businesses will use LinkedIn stories very crassly. They'll mess it up, they'll be ugly, and people get very fed up with LinkedIn stories very quickly because I think most businesses have no idea really how to use social media in the right way it's supposed to be used, as you say, more organically and natural and socially. I certainly would think that I would see it as being part of I suppose I see LinkedIn stories used in a similar way to maybe the way we'd use Instagram stories, and that we would put on the stories things that naturally aren't going to have a longer life. They may be more a bit rawer. So we might I don't know, do a post about maybe a day out and use that as a story. Like a team day out, or we might, if we're passing somewhere. So sometimes there's a real mix between personal and business stories on LinkedIn, and what should be posted and what's right and what's wrong. And I think some stories go beyond the business into probably being a little bit too personal, and I'd be tempted to think about those sort of things. But again, it's got to be appropriate for your audience. But like in everything in LinkedIn, everything you do has got to be appropriate to the audience and make it work. Great. I'm going to stop the questions there. Thank you everyone for joining us. Again, please fill in the feedback form. If you've got any questions you haven't had answered, then drop me or Ian a line through either LinkedIn or Twitter or through email. So Ian's details are on the screen. Mine is somewhere else. But it's status_social if you want to find us on Twitter, and I'm pretty much on LinkedIn. Well, every hour of every day. And yes, obviously you will be entered into a draw to win a social media audit if you do your feedback. So we'll leave the link up for a while, and but thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.